And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Critical baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases. MotleyRice.com, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Make sure you find us at JBandGoldwaterShow.com as well. You can follow on social media at JB and Goldwater, and individually at Sports Media JB. And at Darren Goldwater. The Share Healthcare chat lines, they are open, and Clint and Adam are in there. I'm sure amongst plenty of others who just haven't commented yet. So you certainly can do that. Hey, Craig. And we'll pop you into the program and make you a part of what we do over the next couple of hours, which it is Wednesday, January the 5th. So we're working our way through the first work week of 2022. And we've got some coaching stuff certainly we'll get to in just a little bit. Mike Peterson is off to Florida. And Clemson is set to hire a new defensive line coach, and he's a good one as well. We'll tell you about that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We've got JC Shurburtt on the way at 12:30. He'll stick around until 1:30 or as long as he wants to stay. It's JC's day. It's up to him. We've got a bunch to get to with him. Obviously, the Mike Peterson situation. We'll kind of recap the whole year with JC and weave our way in and out of it. The ups and downs and what's on the horizon, not just recruiting, but are there other coaching situations maybe upcoming or forthcoming for Gamecock football? I would not put that to bed totally just yet. The NFL has a final weekend to go, and then the playoffs are set to be played. Just so everybody knows, by the way, my dear friend Mike Morgan hadn't been with us for a while. We've had a lot of conflicts with schedules to try to get him in. But he will be back next week. He has been calling a bunch of NFL. He's got another one coming up this weekend. Talked to him for a long time on the phone this morning. So when we talk to Mike next week, we'll be able to get some NFL playoff stuff from him in addition to college hoops and football and whatever else, because he's been calling a bunch of teams games who are going to be in the playoffs. Yep. So Mike should have us front and center for that probably next Tuesday when we get him in. And plenty of hoops to get to. Both Clemson and the Gamecocks fall last night. First and foremost, hello, Darren.
So I've gone into the story of how I completely and totally partially tore my Achilles when I was like 21 years old. Yeah. I re-aggravated that thing.
Oh, no.
And then re-aggravated again. So at any point in time during the show, if I give some grimace, like, it's the most painful thing in the world, my foot may have moved by about a centimeter and caused me to do something along the lines of but I'm still powering through. I went to the gym today, which is the complete not right decision, but in my head it made a lot of sense because I want to keep going to the gym. So now I'm in pain, but it's 2 hours of sitting down, so I think I can get through it.
Yeah. If I see you fall out of your chair, I'll just keep talking about that.
I better not fall out because the chair part is good. It's the whole stand up and get back in the chair. That'll be the problem.
Yeah. I'll just
so let's not fall out of the chair right now.
I'll just keep talking, and you do whatever you need to do to get yourself figured out, and we'll move on from there. How about that? Well, yeah, Achilles injuries are
it's the worst.
Dude, they're the worst. Yeah, luckily, knock on wood, I haven't had one like that, but I know that they're bad. So
yeah, and the key is if anyone ever gets one, don't do what I did. Actually let it heal properly so that you don't have to deal with it again years down the line and then years after that again.
Yeah, college football or college athletics or athletics in general should teach people that when you hear of somebody having an Achilles problem, you just count on the fact that they'll be back when they're back. There is no real timeline.
Yeah.
You'll see them when you see them, and that's pretty much it. So, well, best of luck to you, and
Thanks.
I'll whatever you need, I'll be here.
I'll make it. I'll power through.
12:06 here on this Wednesday afternoon. The Clemson Tigers and the South Carolina Gamecocks both fell last night. Clemson drops to 9-5 on the season. Carolina falls to 9-4. That's a quad 3 loss for Clemson. So they have slipped from 52 in the net rankings to 64. And the important numbers for them, they are 1-1 quad 1 wins games, just 1-3 versus quad 2 teams. So 2 wins this year on the Tigers schedule that you would consider good wins amongst those 9. So that was a tough one last night against the Wahoos of Virginia. They've already played them twice, so they've split this regular season schedule with those guys. And then South Carolina, my fear with them was getting behind early with Auburn. This was a bad matchup from the start. Auburn's really good. Auburn and Tennessee are probably the 2 best teams in the SEC, and I'd probably go with Auburn as the actual best team in the league, just because they can beat you so many different ways. They've got shooters. Zep Jasper, by the way, saw that he's starting point guard for Auburn, formerly of the College of Charleston, but Everett German went up to see him last night, the voice of the Cougars, and Marlene Naver, who used to be the SID at the College of Charleston. She's at Auburn now, so she was in Columbia. So that was neat. A couple Cougars getting together up there. But it sure wasn't neat on the scoreboard, 81-66. Gamecocks played a little bit better in the second half, but Auburn way too much for South Carolina. As Mike Morgan pointed out to me this morning on the phone, he didn't call the game last night, but as he pointed out, this next one for the Gamecocks is crucial. Can't lose at Vanderbilt, who, by the way, had a big win last night in the SEC, and they're feeling pretty good. And Scottie Pippen Jr. is really, really good. But Vandy is now 9-4, 1-0 in the league with that last-second shot to win it over Arkansas on the road in Fayetteville, middle of America Arena, as they like to call it over there. But Carolina historically, Darren, they go to Nashville, and I'm just going to say a 4-letter word. They suck when they go to Nashville and play Vanderbilt. For whatever reason, maybe it's that raised floor. I don't know. It's been like this a long time. But if you drop that one, you've got a road trip awaiting next Tuesday to Tennessee. You're staring 0-3 in the league before you get to Florida, Arkansas, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. So Gamecocks really need to win this weekend in Vanderbilt. But it was a tough night last night for both in-state programs, the Tigers and the Gamecocks.
It's a bad matchup for South Carolina. That was my fear going into the game, especially coming off a pause. You're going up against a tempo team, not just a tempo team, but a damn good tempo team. If it got ahead of them early, and it did, it was going to be a long, long night. Credit to them, though, because anyone who had a wagering interest in the game, this thing was much more interesting than for the average fan. The line closed at 9. Gamecocks got it within 8 with like 7-8 minutes to go. Yeah. And there were those in this house who were wondering which way that was going to go. So
you got your 8-year-old daughter betting on basketball games now? It's tremendous.
Yes, I do. I have her learning, because you can't properly talk about sports these days if you don't at least understand the language. So I have her learning, and I let her play squares, which really is stupid gambling, but she enjoys it. So I'm getting her involved. But it was a bad matchup for them. It is a big game going to Vanderbilt, and I don't know what to make of this Clemson team. I really don't. I mean, yeah. I think it's indicative of where they are and where Virginia is, that those two teams split. Different styles, even though they both want to keep it slow. Clemson's more outside the arc and Virginia inside. But I'm telling you, COVID pauses, it's going to be tough to really figure it out either way, how teams are going to play. And one other note about the SEC, LSU Kentucky, very interesting yesterday with the wild swings and runs that are in that one. By the end of the year, one of those two, if not both, could also be considered the best team in the SEC, depending on where they go in the trajectory of the season.
Yeah, Tigers only have one loss. Kentucky now has 3, but they're uberly talented, as we know. They did only score 60 last night in Baton Rouge against Will Wade, and the Tigers still can't believe Will Wade has a job, but he does. LSU wins and evens up their SEC record at 1 apiece. A&M hit a shot at the buzzer to beat Georgia as well, 81-79. It was an adventurous night in the Southeastern Conference, and it's probably going to be a lot like that throughout the year. You just kind of alluded to it. I was listening to or watching the SEC Network last night and some stuff on ESPN, and there's largely across college basketball, there are a lot of the respectable insiders that I follow who think that the Southeastern Conference, as it stands today, now this could change in a couple of weeks, is the best league in the country. And I don't really disagree with them. There's not another league out there right now that is as deep as the SEC has shown to be through essentially the first half or so of the year. We're about to that halfway point. They still got a ways to go, but I mean the ACC hasn't lived up to its standards at all. The Big Ten's got a lot of really good teams, and I'll be anxious to see how they play down the stretch. A lot of talent in the league. Mm-hmm. Can they get it put together? The Pac-12, you just never know. And the Big 12, generally the top of the Big 12 is really, really good. And this year, I think they've got a chance. But as of now, the SEC is surprisingly, to me, I didn't think it'd be this way. Darren, I think it's the deepest league thus far. Again, there's a lot still out there.
Thus far. And I think the Big 12 is probably nudging up against them with the Big 10 just behind. If you haven't paid attention much to Baylor.
Just the whole athletic department, by the way.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. And by the way, they're putting together a new arena right on the water out there. The plans look ridiculous. So I don't think they're slowing down anytime soon. They've won 20 in a row right now. And what they've done, if you go back over last year and the pauses that we had to go through and then the year before that, there is some massive sustainability going on right now with that basketball program. They're rolling, and they're the most consistent by far. They're the best team in the country with their full resume. There's a reason they're up there at top the polls right now.
Yeah, the football program is really good. The women's and men's basketball teams are really good. The baseball team is good. Those are the big 4 in college athletics, and generally that's what you're judged on. And right now, Baylor on the Brazos. They certainly have it rocking and rolling. Did see a couple of questions in the Share Healthcare chat lines about Keyshawn Bryant's injury. Craig has chimed in as well. AC sprain is the early word. That's what I've heard as well, but nothing official just yet. So we'll wait to see what's going on there. They got to get Jermaine Cousinard fully healthy as well. And the Gamecocks got to hit some open shots. When you're open, you got to hit them. And they got within 8 last night, and then they turned it over and they couldn't hit open shots, and that's kind of how it fell apart for Carolina. Clemson, by the way, up next, they've got a trip to Raleigh on Saturday at noon at PNC Arena. That would be another quad 3 opportunity for the Tigers. So really need to win that one. Don't want these last 2 to be a pair of quad 3 losses for Clemson trying to be an at-large team into the dance this year. It'd be a little bit behind the 8 ball, just like South Carolina is set to be if they lose in Vanderbilt this weekend. So some not some gain ground games, some can't lose games, in my opinion, for both Clemson and South Carolina. They're in very similar situations. Thus far. Elsewhere around the state, the Lady Gamecocks will play tomorrow night in Baton Rouge at 8 o'clock. Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley, of course, the head coaches in the ball game. As far as I know, all these games are on, so I'll run down the list. And Darren, if you hear anything there that is incorrect, please correct me. Tonight, Western Carolina up in Cullowhee will host the Citadel, and the Tigers going to try to get to win Bulldogs going to try to get to win number 7 here through 12 games, or 6-5 going in. Coastal tomorrow night is at Troy. Maybe they'll say hello to our dear friend Skylar Mead, head baseball coach of the Trojans over there. We'll have to pass word. Charleston Southern, they've got Gardner Webb tonight at home at 7 o'clock, and the College of Charleston is still on pause, but set to play Elon this coming Sunday downtown at TD Arena. So we'll see what happens there. All right, 12:15 here on this Wednesday afternoon. JC Shurburtt is ahead in about 15 minutes on our program. Let's get to the football stuff. We'll start with Clemson, real quick, the word out of the upstate is Nick Eason is set to take over for Todd Bates as the defensive line coach of the Tigers. For those that remember the name, he was a talented, great defensive lineman for Clemson in the early 2000s and spent 10 years in the NFL. And since then has coached in the NFL with the Browns, the Titans, and the Bengals. And he has spent 1 year coaching in college football. It was this year, and it was at Auburn as their defensive line coach. So looks to be coming home. Nick Eason to the upstate to coach under Dabo Swinney. It'd be another former player on the field guiding the Tigers program. Official word is expected on that sometime very, very soon. And then for South Carolina, the news that broke last night, which I had no tip or anything that this was coming, but I was not shocked at all, actually, when it happened, that Mike Peterson is departing South Carolina's football program and heading home as well to Florida, where he played. He was an All-American, and he's going to go coach for Billy Napier down there in a similar role. He's also an alumni liaison. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but that's part of his new job. So congratulations to Mike Peterson. I tweeted last night, this is a big loss for South Carolina. There are some things that I would say he might be, based on the information that I have received, deficient in. Now, every coach has a deficiency in some areas, so this isn't a knock on Mike Peterson at all, and this isn't trying to, just glance over it and move on to the next thing. He's probably got some work to do as far as a recruiter goes in certain areas and things like that. But when it comes to a guy in the locker room and understanding players and being able to talk scheme and get these guys in the right positions, in the positions that he was coaching, kind of those edge guys, he's good. And Mike Peterson, I could tell you that when Will Muschamp departed the program, word was sent basically through that athletics department and through that football program that you might want to keep Mike Peterson around, because Mike Peterson had a huge role in that group of J.J. Enagbari, Jordan Birch, amongst others, getting them to South Carolina. Again, I mentioned the recruiting thing. Now, I don't mean he can't recruit. He can, but then also probably keeping them there because, as you've seen, the transfer portal is wide open and happening, and a lot of these guys really latch on to these position coaches. And this is one of those cases in Columbia where they love playing for Mike Peterson. What I learned this morning is a lot of the players, almost probably all of them, did not know this was coming at all. This happened, and so they're going to miss him. But it also doesn't appear at this point in time that South Carolina is going to lose anybody because of Mike Peterson either. They are probably set to be just fine in that department, the guys that he was coaching, as far as staying at South Carolina. But it's a big loss. He's a great coach. He's going to go to Florida. I totally understand the move. Wish him the best. He's been at South Carolina since Will Muschamp's first season. He was one of the first guys he hired. He's been a great representative for the Gamecocks. He'll probably always pull for the Gamecocks except for when they play each other. And Carolina is now searching for his replacement.
He hired him away from Florida, actually, when I went to look for a picture to put on this graphic here. Yeah. The first picture that popped up was when he got hired by Will Muschamp, and this was him wearing his Florida gear back, I don't know, whichever year that was. I'd be surprised if one or two leaves and follows. That's the nature of the beast. If there's this huge defection, I'd be surprised. And I only say that because of the culture that we've seen on display within that locker room, on the field, following the bowl game. That there's something right about inside that locker room right now. It would surprise me if there's a bunch of folks that follow him down to Florida. But I'll say this: if there's one aspect of South Carolina that was very, very good this year, defensively, right? Obviously Foster on the back end, and we said it all year long. Those edge guys, they moved around fast, like instinctively, not thinking about stuff, just reactionary and bang. And that was one of the best parts of that South Carolina defense.
JJ Enagbari is a first rounder, and And Jordan Birch and Jordan Strawn, it's going to be a pair of Jordans next year on the outside for the Gamecocks. They have great potential to be first rounders as well, Darren. So he's done an excellent job in building these guys, preparing them, teaching them, coaching them, and things of that nature. But it's a tough loss for South Carolina, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Overall, though, got to give some credit to Shane Beamer. I mean, there's not like mass defections on this staff or anything of that nature, but this seemingly, Darren, is something that's really, really understandable.
Yeah, and you, Keith, JC, a lot of the guys have talked about the fact that if there are changes, if there are additions to the staff, if there's any type of movement, one of the things that has to happen or would be beneficial to the program to happen would be to actually hire or slide someone over to be a full-time linebacker coach. That was also part of it. So now that adds into the hire for Shane Beamer. It almost becomes it is now a more intriguing hire, and he's probably in a position of maybe going out and hiring a better candidate because you can offer a little bit more.
Yeah. And Darren, I'll say this too. I mean, there's we're seeing all this at Clemson right now with a lot of former players coming back to coach at their alma mater, and I'm all for that as long as the guys are good coaches and they know what they're doing. There obviously has been a push in Columbia since Shane was hired to hire alumni as well or former players, and he's got a few on that staff currently in different roles. Eric Kimry obviously is on the field, but off the field, Pat DeMarco, Shaq Wilson, Byron Gerardo, Connor Shaw, and they're going to be looking to add more in different roles in the future as well. There are some really good names out there that are former Gamecocks that could probably come in and coach this position just over in Atlanta under Sean Elliott, who obviously was at South Carolina himself. You've got Trevian Robertson, who is turning into a pretty elite defensive line coach. Jimmy Lindsey actually coached the interior guys now for Carolina, but could there be some shuffling on the staff? You've got Bryson Allen Williams over there, and there's some other names that are kind of floating around out there of potential hires in coming back home. But, I'm all for that if they're the best coach. I really like the Nick Saban model. Who's the best coach? Yeah, and that's just what I'm interested in. Are you the best coach that I can hire to come coach this position or this football team or whatever it is? So we'll see what Shane does. There's probably, if I had to guess, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, I want you to guess what's going to happen here, I would guess there's probably some reshuffling on the defensive side of the football, and you never know. Maybe some on the offensive side of the football at some point in time as well. And I say that simply because Clayton White, although he has linebackers coach connected to his name, he's doing a lot with the secondary. They need probably a permanent linebackers coach. So there might be some reshuffling. I don't know the strengths of every coach that they're looking at and every coach that's on the roster. We obviously know some of the strengths, but there are others that can do other things. So Coach Beamer, Darren, I'm sure is evaluating his options with this hire and what he could do to make not just the best hire, but the overall staff better, even if it does involve some shuffling around of duties.
Even though Beamer's a first-year coach and there's a learning process and all of that, one thing that he knows, one thing that all the coaches know, if you're in the profession, you've got to have a list, at least an idea of guys you want on your staff that aren't currently on your staff. That we don't know his list. I promise you there is a list that exists, whether it's in his head or on a piece of paper or in his computer. There's a list that exists there. So he's got an idea. This probably surprised a lot of folks. You said you didn't hear it coming. I obviously didn't hear it coming. I don't know how much Beamer knew of this coming, but my guess is he's sitting back saying, okay, probably echoing a lot of what you just said. Wish him the best. This makes sense. Probably pretty calm. That's the way he's been. And let's go execute my plan and go after some of the guys that are on my list. I have no idea who would be on his list, but it is very popular especially if it's not going to be necessarily a coordinator position where it's definitely go get the best guy possible. If you can bring in a guy who is an alum, who is well-liked, who can go out and recruit well, particularly well because he does love the school, it's a part of him, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to put another one of those guys on your staff if there's someone who fits that bill.
I can tell you this. I'm not going to necessarily speak for Coach Beamer here, but if Shane's watching, which I think he checks in from time to time, Darren, I'm sure he would get a grin out of this. If he learned anything at all in being a head coach of the last year, it's probably to always have a list for every single coach that you have on staff, because clearly last year when he got hired, he was throwing some curveballs that I don't know if he was or wasn't ready for them, but obviously it caught him off guard a little bit. You know, it was a 1-2 inside fastball, and you're like, well, now you're not supposed to throw that there. What's going on here? So I'm sure that Shane figured out pretty quickly, in addition to all the people that he's surrounded himself with, you better always be prepared because you just never know. I did see a question I want to get to before we get to break and get JC in from Brandon. Do you think this is why Peterson wasn't at the beginning of bowl practice in Charlotte? I'm not going to say this with 100% certainty because I'm not on staff at South Carolina, but I would give you a hard no on that. This came together pretty quickly. South Carolina was dealing with some COVID issues, and I'm not going to go out and say anything like Mike Peterson had COVID because I don't know if Mike Peterson had COVID. That would be irresponsible. But they were dealing with COVID issues, and I would lean more towards something like that, or for some other reason, I would give you a hard no on that. I don't think that had anything to do with that. This was a pretty quick ordeal, and it was his time. We'll see.
It's hard to know, right, if you're not inside that locker room, but it is very public information that there was COVID issues with South Carolina heading into that game. So,
yep.
I mean,
yeah, there was.
That's public.
No doubt about it. We're public too. You can find us anywhere in the world, any app out there. Make sure you follow us at JB and Goldwater. This guy's pretty public himself. You can also access the Big Spur from anywhere in the world, bigspur.com. He owns it. JC Shurburtt up next right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle, and we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity finance to new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations: Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honeybee feet on my screen door. I got a little buzz in my head. So. Cause we come from a long line of sinners like me.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox and sing me back home.
All right, 12:31. Welcome back, the JB and Goldwater Show on this Wednesday afternoon, driven by Stokes Volkswagen and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. JC will pop in here in just a moment, and he'll be a part of plenty of Gamecock stuff to get to, amongst other things, obviously wrapping up bowl season as well. LSU loses last night to Kansas State. I got to go back and find this. Darren, I'm sure you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure that what I read is similar to. I know this is great radio and television.
You're going to go with how many scholarship guys LSU had?
Hold on. Yes.
I didn't watch a snap of that game.
So
I barely remembered it was going to happen, and then realized in time and said no.
Well, I watched a little bit because it was football and you only get a couple of games left. I was like, man, I want to watch football, and so I got it on. Didn't watch it for very long because it was a hard game to watch. 42-20 was the final, just for everybody that's interested in that. But okay, here it is. Going into the game last night, LSU was down to 38 scholarship players. The Tigers position coaches, the offensive line coach last night in the game was Joe Henry. He's an analyst. The running backs coach was Mario Acitelli. He's an analyst. The wide receivers coach was Carter Sheridan. He's an analyst. The linebackers coach was Jake Olson. He's an analyst. The cornerbacks coach was Dwayne Thomas. This is going to surprise you, Darren, but he was an analyst. And the special teams coordinator and their tight ends coach were not on-field coaches either. Chris Forestier, I'm not sure how you say it. He was an analyst, and the tight ends coach, Derek Shea, he was a grad assistant. So that's, how many is that? 1, 2. How is it?
It's everyone. It's okay.
7.
Season's over. Everyone out the door. Let's go. Pack your bags. Put a note on the door when you're gone. The line swung wildly as all of this information was going on. I think it ended around 9. It was 7 or 9 yesterday in favor of Kansas State. But I mean, they had no chance. I mean, we may as well have gone out there and suited up. That's why I didn't watch. I knew all the back part of it, and I was like, well, I don't need to go see, college versus high school here.
No, it was hard to watch. I saw a couple of Big 12 or Kansas State fans in the stands throwing up all these Big 12 signs. I'm like, Dude, if LSU was at full strength, they beat the crap out of you. Like, knock it off. I get it. It's bowl game. It's supposed to be fun. And so that was fun for them. Congratulations to Kansas State for winning the game. But let's come on. Let's be clear here. Like, don't beat your chest over beating a team with 38 scholarship players and like literally nobody on the field that anybody even knew. I didn't even know who the guys were.
No, that's why I didn't watch. I like Will's comment here. Credit to LSU for playing that game.
No doubt.
They could have easily said, we don't have the guys to play, and we just can't. So hat tip to them. They went and put on a show, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I don't see anything. I mean, yeah, you lose the game, but at LSU, and we're waiting on JC Shurburtt here for those that are interested. At LSU, that game last night, if you lose that game, that's not going to be anything that's going to direct or redirect your future. It's South Carolina playing in the Mayo Bowl. It was a totally different situation, but at LSU, that game, Darren, as you've alluded to before, some bowl games really truly do matter to one or both teams in the game. That game last night definitely mattered to Kansas State. No matter how you win the game, if you beat LSU, you beat LSU, and that's all that they're going to want to acknowledge, which is fine. That's good for them internally. But at LSU, the only reason that you even play the game last night is to play a bunch of guys who probably don't get a chance to play a whole lot and let all these analysts go out there and get some experience on the field. If you win, that's great. But if you lose, that is not going to affect Brian Kelly in 2022 at all.
No, not at all. And that's why they probably went out and did it. Hey, here you go. Guys, you've earned this. The guys who are still around, here's your opportunity. Go get some experience. Kids who are here, go play, have fun. I'm sure they cared too. They just didn't have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. We always give this guy a chance every Wednesday. JC, not last Wednesday though, because we were long gone. We were still enjoying our holiday break. But JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com with his headset on, joins us here on this happy hump day. By the way, speaking of happy hump day to Kerryon Joyner. Some neat news breaking on him. He is the official Duke's Mayo Bowl ambassador now. It's a deal worth about $5,000 that they've signed him to. So that's pretty neat. Congratulations. JC, what's up?
What's up? Yeah, I think, I've been asked about 30 million times about bowl games and opt-outs, and it's kind of amazing to me because there were really only 20 guys total that opted out across college football this year for bowls, and it's actually been more of a talking point this season than last. I guess this last season people used COVID as a reason. But look, people ask, how are you going to get players to play in the bowl? It's deals like this. I mean, bowls are ready made for NIL, I think. They're all about sponsorships and ads and branding. And that's why bowl sponsors pay so much. The TV money's there. They're highly rated television programs. So why not? If you're going to make your television program better, the cast of Friends, they got paid $1 million an episode, they got paid their money. Yeah, you remember the last season?
Yeah,
Wait,
$1 million each. The principals, the 4 or 6
for the last season. You're saying
last 2 or 3. So did Seinfeld.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they're rolling. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're getting all the checks too, and they show up on your TV all the time.
Oh yeah, Matthew Perry's a rich man. He looks like a homeless person. But
residuals,
yeah, but that's so I think that's the bowls need to kind of wake up and say, hey, look, man, you got Belk Bowl a few years ago. You got Deebo Samuel. He wants to opt out. Well, hey, here's $40,000 to go play in the game and talk about Duke's mayonnaise or Belk's all week, that kind of thing. So I think that's probably a logical step by the bowls, since it seems like they don't want to do anything really radical to upset the apple cart. Like I would prefer them make it a free for all like it used to be and do away with some of these ties, because it's like Arkansas goes to the Outback Bowl this year, right? Big deal for them against Penn State, Darren's team. Who wanted to be there more? Arkansas, definitely. And it was huge because they hadn't been to the Outback Bowl. They hadn't been to a Florida Bowl game, I think, since the Citrus Bowl in maybe the 90s. Maybe sometime quicker than that. But big deal for them. Big deal for Kentucky. Brought legions of fans to the Citrus Bowl. But when you're talking about Tennessee going there, Florida going there, even South Carolina going to the Outback Bowl, they've been so many times. It's like, these tie-ins with these bowls have been in existence since the 90s. So it's almost 30 years where an SEC team has been, they're going to Orlando and they're going to Tampa. Mix it up, man. I mean, maybe you have an SEC team that goes to the Sun Bowl one year because, hey, it's the Sun Bowl. Send A&M out there, or the Vegas Bowl, which is connected to the SEC now every 2 years. That kind of thing. Give the fans a little bit more choice in terms of the locale and do that. But nobody's listening to me on that, and I think that's fine. But the NIL thing, I think, is logical for some of these bowl games to step up to the plate and take care of the players.
It's a great point. I mean, and we'll move on, but I give, even though Dennis Dodd doesn't like it, I give the Mayo Bowl a boatload of credit. They marketed themselves brilliantly with this Mayo thing, and I mean that was the thing that he. Never mind, Dennis Dodd. He's kind of pretty negative about things, anyways. But he missed the whole point. Like the whole point, he missed. Like the point of the Duke's Mayo Bowl and spending all that money to sponsor the bowl game is to try to create some type of energy for their brand, not just in Charlotte, but across the country. And they did that. People were talking about this Mayo dump. They were talking about it on SportsCenter. They were talking about it on all these shows and things like that. And it was Dukes. They marketed themselves brilliantly. It was a perfectly executed game plan, and more bowls could probably pay attention to that. I think that was neat.
Yeah,
we need to have like the Castrol oil bowl, and somebody has to have oil dumped all over them.
That'd be hard to get out of your hair, I think. It would be fine.
Or the mustard bowl. Who's going to be the mustard guy or the ketchup guy?
I'd be a mustard guy. I'm disappointed in all the state media that covered both the Clemson and the South Carolina bowl game that there's not one picture of a Cheez-It bowl game Cheez-It inside the Duke's Mayo and sampling it. Not one.
Probably didn't want to mix that Carolina Clemson stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
But hey, Golick and Schroff, but first of all, they're really good on TV. That was a great skit that they did throughout the game with trying these different dips, like dipping the Oreos and mayonnaise. I don't know that I would do that. But props to Golick for doing that. Darren, you're a TV guy. Is that a producer thing, or is that something they maybe just came up with on their own?
So years ago, I did a Division II game at Mount Olive. That is home of Mount Olive pickles. On the air, I ate a big old Mount Olive pickle. But look, it's fun. They played to the whole marketing thing that you were just talking about. That's exactly what they did. I would have thrown up if I was doing that. But for them, they had fun. That is the underlying theme of the bowl. They opened talking about Mayo, not the football game, so they kept that going throughout the broadcast.
That's why they put all that money. It was brilliant. Yeah, we got Jamie just chimed in the Krispy Kreme bowl. Oh my God, everybody would want to play in that. Like they're gonna dump a big bucket of Krispy Kreme glaze on you if you win the game or something. I mean, whatever. But you see where this is. I mean, JC, you're totally on to something. So maybe we'll have more food bowl options in the future, and
I sort of like food bowl, like named after food or something. I mean, I'm more of a traditionalist, and so the orange bowl, the peach bowl, the food, or some sort of like Fiesta or Cotton Bowl. I kind of like all that. I used to have the Cherry Bowl in Detroit, Michigan. I played at the Pontiac Silverdome, and now that's the bowl in Detroit's not called the Cherry Bowl anymore. Used to have the Tangerine Bowl. It's now the Cheez-It Bowl. Yeah. And it's been 45 different things. I mean, so you kind of – even the bowl game in Charlotte, I think mayonnaise is a much better deal and much more marketable than Belk clothing.
I love Belks, though, now. Easy.
Oh, I did too. And the kids still got to go on their shopping spree or whatever as part of the bowl. Yeah. So it's still the same thing. Belk's still a part of it. But title sponsorship, Duke's Mayonnaise, I think that's something that can really catch fire. And they have those kickoff games up there too.
Yep.
And so it's just going to be a whole lot of mayo. And hats off to their social media team, their Twitter guy or gal especially. They did a great job bringing a lot of interest to the bowl game and then the Mayo bath itself at the end. And certainly was a great deal for them.
Yep. No doubt. I agree. I totally agree. All right. Yes. The J-Rock Media guys. What's up, guys? Reese's does have a bowl. It's the Senior Bowl down there in Mobile, Alabama, a place that JC's probably been a bunch to see the seniors. It's okay, JC. We'll move on. But nobody wants to hear this crap anymore. They want to talk about Mike Pete.
Mobile several times. So it's a good town. Good town.
I dated a girl from Saraland, Alabama, one time in my life, which is Mobile. All right, Mike Pete moves on to Florida. JC mentioned at the top of the show, this is something that is totally understandable. He's been there before. He was an All-American there. Also coached there. That's his home, and he is departing. So what type of impact is the program looking at here with the loss of Mike Peterson?
Well, he's in South Carolina 6 years. He was there all 5 years of the Muschamp era. I thought he was kind of an under-the-radar recruiter, and he didn't have a whole lot of guys like with his name beside him. But he was instrumental in helping land Jordan Birch and some others, and staying on through the transition, I think, really helped Shane Beamer keep some current guys in the fold. And 6 years as an assistant at a place is a long time. I think he did a nice job during his 6 years there. I think I tell everybody all the time, as much as you look at the Muschamp staff on paper, go back to his first staff, and all these guys that had these big recruiting reputations, it ended up being the two best recruiters on the staff were Bobby Bentley and Mike Peterson. And both of those guys were analysts before they weren't even full-time coaches before they came to South Carolina. And so it just kind of works out that way. And I think that, like I said, 6 years as an assistant at one program, and you get a chance to go home. Mike Peterson's not only a Gator, but he grew up, I think he's from Alachua, Santa Fe, Alachua County, which is right there in Gainesville. He played for the Jaguars some along with the Falcons. So Northern Florida is his home, and he had an opportunity. You sort of, if you're the Gamecocks, you kind of hate to lose a coach to a division rival, but I think it's a chance for South Carolina to optimize their defensive staff. I think they could, take that position and do a number of things with it. Just to be clear to people out there that still don't get it, because I see all the time, like, Jimmy Lindsey needs to make sure the defensive ends are doing better. Well, he didn't coach defensive ends. Mike Peterson did. Yeah. He had bucks and ends, and Jimmy had the inside guys. So I think they could go a number of directions. I think, I think there's a case to be made to hire a linebackers coach, because Clayton White, although he played linebacker, he's only coached the secondary, and he spends a lot of time in the secondary. And, they probably need to look at, hey, who can give these linebackers some love and attention. That's not to say that Clayton didn't. I'm just saying that, if you got a guy that gravitates towards one spot and he spent his whole career, and I don't think you can argue that the secondary was probably, as far as coaching goes, guys, the best coach position on the team this year. As far as just guys being in the right place, knowing what they're doing, individual player development, the secondary was a great story as far as that's concerned. And so you think about a guy maybe like a Christian Robinson, who I think was not retained at Florida, but who was kind of a rising star. He took over the defense after they fired Grantham this year. His father played at South Carolina, Gus Robinson, and Shane Beamer recruited him. Lost him to Georgia, but recruited him during the recruiting process to South Carolina. So there's a relationship there. Do they just simply fill the defensive line spot and maybe go look at a guy like Trevian Robertson from Georgia State, who's a former Gamecock, who I think is another rising star in this business?
No doubt.
Covered Trevian as a recruit, the class of 2007. Not surprised at all. He's a really good D-line coach. He learned from, what a lot of us consider the GOAT in Brad Lawing, how to coach up a defensive line. And Georgia State's been up there in the nation in sacks. I mean, he helped Jordan Strong. I don't, as far as recruiting goes, I'm sure he's a good recruiter. It's hard to gauge sometimes when you're coming from a group of five, because, a lot of times those schools recruit like in terms of who they can get. But I think Trevian would be a guy that would be ready to make that jump. And, but like, those are just two names. I mean, I don't have any intel that said either one of those guys would be considered, but just some examples as to which direction they could possibly go with the defensive opening. I don't think it's just cut and dry that they need to go hire an ends coach to take Mike P's place, though I do think that's possible.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because there's certainly, JC, could be some reshuffling, as you've alluded to, and that wouldn't shock me in any way, shape, or form. Clayton White has spent a lot of the year in the secondary. They've had a grad assistant basically coaching the linebackers, so that probably is something that needs to be addressed. From what I understand, there is certainly some interest internally of off-field coaches.
Yeah, Shaq Wilson comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned some of that today as well. Look, Shane, this is there you go, Craig. Shaq Wilson. This will be very interesting, JC, because as you mentioned Trevian Robertson, who I agree with you. I think if it's not now to South Carolina, it's within a year probably, and he's off somewhere. This dude, he's from Laurinburg, North Carolina. He's been learning the right way. He's coaching under Sean Elliott. You only learn one way under Sean Elliott, and that's the right way. He's in Atlanta, where there's a lot of elite talent. He knows this state inside and out, not just because he played here, but Sean Elliott's staff recruits South Carolina a lot. And there's a lot of defensive guys that come from this area and from North Carolina and from Georgia. So he kind of checks a lot of the boxes, JC. I think the biggest question, though, is if that is what is best for the program as far as do they need to shuffle some other guys around on staff to make it all work where collectively they could be the best unit that they can be. I guess we'll find out that answer whenever Shane Beamer gets to it.
Yeah, it's staff optimization, and I think that's important. Thought it was probably a little more important on offense, but what do I know about that? It's but yeah, defensively. I mean, look, it was a good year, and this defense played out of its mind in the win over Florida, the win over Auburn, shutting them down after an early 14-0 deficit. And especially in the bowl game, I mean, you hold Sam Howell to 3 rushing yards, you're going to beat the Tar Heels most of the time. And kudos to the offense in that game for keeping the Tar Heels offense off the field for 2/3 of the ball game. I mean, 40-20 time of possession. That's your best defense right there against that bunch. But they played well, but it wasn't perfect. And there's some things that need to be cleaned up on that side of the ball that need to be a little more consistent. And so, hey, you look at it and Mike P moves on and you've got an opportunity to kind of tweak and optimize. And, it just depends on Beamer and Clayton White and sort of their discussions and, what happens with that. And, yeah, I did not mention Shaq Wilson at the beginning when I was listing names, but absolutely that's a guy that I think can be a full-time coach on the field, recruit, and all that good stuff. He's been paying his dues Tennessee and now at South Carolina. He's familiar with the program. He is the epitome of a fighting Gamecock as far as, what he gave to this program and what he experienced when he was part of this program as a player. So there's no doubt in my mind Shaq Wilson would be an excellent candidate to coach linebackers if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. I think the question mark there with Shaq Wilson is I from an X's and O's standpoint, JC, it makes all the sense in the world. Shaq Wilson knows how to coach a linebacker in college football. He was excellent, and he is really, really, really smart. He can communicate what he needs to communicate to guys from a schematic standpoint and things of that nature. But Coach Beamer, like many coaches out there that we've learned, JC, over the years, they are at times will be skeptical, about throwing a guy right into the fire without any on-field coaching and without any real true experience recruiting, because that's where a lot of this is going. I mean, you've got and we'll hit the break here in 2 or 3 minutes and then come back with plenty of time for you. But recruiting now, JC, I mean, you cover recruiting. This is way different than it was 3 years ago. It's way different than it was 5 years ago. It's a whole new world than when it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. You have to be able to recruit high school kids. You have to be able to recruit the portal. Oh, and you also have to be able to recruit your own guys from leaving. I mean, there are literally 3, if not 4 phases of recruiting now there used to only be one phase. You just go sign high school and JUCO kids. That is not the case anymore. And so you really have to be able to excel in that department. And some guys, like, I don't know if you can give a guy that type of learning curve in the SEC. How far behind does that put you? I don't know those answers, but it's certainly something that should be considered.
Yeah, recruiting is important. And here's the thing, though, in my experience, right? So you have guys out there like your Torian Grays and Justin Steps of the world that have been in the business a while. They're both relatively young, but they've been around for a while, that are just studs. And you know it. You also have your Godfather types, like Rodney Garner, who's at Tennessee now.
Yeah.
Rodney Garner can recruit. Larry Johnson, who's at Ohio State, can recruit. And they're older guys that are just good at it. Ron Zook on the staff at Maryland can recruit. And those are kind of your Godfather types. You got studs and Godfathers. Then your better recruiters end up being, no matter what school you're at, sometimes it's the younger guys. I mentioned Christian Robinson earlier. The job he did as a first-time full-time assistant under Mullen at Florida recruiting was outstanding. I mentioned Bobby Bentley and Mike Peterson under Muschamp. Billy Napier, who everybody's talking about these days, his best recruiting work he did was not at Alabama, where it's easy to sell. Now going into Louisiana is tough if you're going to, even if you're Alabama, to get guys. But it was at Clemson when he was a first-time full-time coach on the road, hitting the road like that. So sometimes that recruiting stuff ends up, Eric Kimmery's done a really nice job recruiting this year. Took the Oscar Delp situation to the wire and ended up with Stogner out of the portal. I know Beamer had a previously existing relationship, but you still have to massage that and land him. So
what
I don't know,
Shane? What about Shane in his heyday at South Carolina?
Shane was had been at Mississippi State, and then still relatively young. I guess South Carolina was the second school he was at, and at Mississippi State, he hit the ground running down there as a recruiter after just being at Tennessee for a while, working under who I consider the godfather of recruiting, and Philip Fulmer. Gamecock fans may not like him and may not like that. But Philip Fulmer was a guy, make no mistake, before everybody was recruiting Gaga like this, Philip Fulmer was out there recruiting everybody else's players and bringing them to Tennessee. And we all know that. So he learned from that guy. So, I'm less worried about the recruiting end of it, as long as he works hard, and I have no doubt in my mind, Shaq's the type of guy that would go out there and give it his all. There is – a personality quotient there. Can you communicate with young people, that kind of thing? And I don't know that Shaq can't do that. I'm assuming he can. But that would be the key there with somebody inexperienced, in my opinion, is, do you have the personality to make it work? And, all those guys I mentioned, I have no doubt that they could.
12:57 on a Wednesday afternoon. JC must be cold in Chicago. He's got a beanie on inside. We'll let him warm up during this break. When we return, certainly more on recruiting and the portal. We'll look back at some of the things we saw this year all the way through the bowl game and continue some of our staff conversation and what we expect moving forward. Believe it or not, we're going to be waking up here in a few weeks and spring practice will be starting. It's amazing how quickly that can hit us in the face in the spring each year. Hang tight. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill, or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, 102, final hour on this Wednesday afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, MotleyRice.com. Look here now. We all know that y'all have got tax returns coming back to you. You're going to be swimming in money. If you need a new ride at Stokes Volkswagen, you can go spend it there. StokesVW.com. Tell them we sent you. They'll probably give you an orange or some type of fruit while you're waiting on them to get your tires cleaned.
You can talk to Mike, who's the GM over there, and talk to him about Notre Dame. Don't bring up the fact that they've lost. I don't know the number I saw today. I think it's like 8 straight major bowl games. It's something huge.
Isn't it is it 6 or 8?
It could be.
Either, let's call it 7.
Okay. So when you go to Mike, don't bring that up. Whether you're right or wrong, just skip over that part.
Like something about Mary. 6-minute abs. Anyways, welcome back. JC Shurburtt joining us here for his second segment with the Big Spur.com. There's always something to read. And now that we're into the off season and we've got another recruiting cycle over the next 5 weeks or so left, and you got transfers and you got coaches. Yeah, you know how it goes. So head to the Big Spur for all your news and notes. Some good stuff is certainly up there today. All right. So JC, I tell you what I'll do. I'm just going to go to the Share Healthcare chat lines here. And I did see a couple of things I want to read from J-Rock Media. I hope Swearinger, J-Rock Media. I hope Swearinger, that would obviously be DJ Swearinger, can come into the program one day in some capacity. He was a great player with the right attitude, and he knows how to get guys hyped up and ready to play. Yeah, look, he's still trying to play in the NFL, but when the time is right for DJ, I'm sure that he'll have some type of conversation with Coach Beamer or whomever at South Carolina, and how can he help the football program. But he does spend some time around it. That's certainly something to keep an eye on sometime down the road. And he went on to say here in the Share Healthcare chat lines, and this is pertaining to Coach Satterfield. Hopefully Satterfield can continue to coach like he did in the bowl. I really like what I saw, but I got to be honest, I'm still skeptical and cautious about that heading into the next season. I think that's a very fair statement right there. I think that's how most fans feel. JC, I mean, you have much more of the pulse of those that are invested in the bigspur.com than I do, but I think anybody that watched the bowl game should be encouraged by what they saw. Now, there's some things to point out. Keith Allsett pointed one of these out yesterday. He had a month to prepare for the game. Nobody had any idea that DeCarrion Joyner was going to basically be the quarterback throughout all of it, with the exception of about 15 snaps. Coach Beamer literally deceived everybody in allowing Joyner to be wide receiver during the 20 minutes of media coverage in Charlotte, and then moved him back to QB. So props to Shane for keeping that under wraps for 4 weeks. I don't know how he did that in today's age, but he did. The Florida game, JC, I'm kind of marching back through the season here. The Florida game had extra time to prepare. That before this game was their best offensive performance. But a couple of things point. They ran the football down North Carolina's throat. They ran it down Auburn's throat. They ran it down Florida's throat. Anyway, picking up what I'm putting down here. Anytime they had a change in games when their offense wasn't working well, generally when they started to run the football, they got better. So obviously this offense needs to run the football in order to win. Problem is A&M, Clemson, and Georgia, they're on your schedule every single year, and they're really good at stopping the run. And there's going to be other teams that are good at that as well. And even teams that aren't good at stopping the run that just scheme you up. If you can't run it, how can you adjust? So there's a lot to be encouraged about. They won 7 games, but from a schematic standpoint, JC, I totally understand people being excited about what they saw to wrap up the season, but obviously skeptical and very cautious moving forward, because it was a long year offensively, and the numbers, they prove that.
Yeah, and look, I mentioned I used the making a pizza analogy here and on my podcast, and then, like I said, the toppings are good. There's some things you look at, you go, man, that was kind of creative and all that, and I think one thing Marcus Satterfield does have going for him is he's not afraid. He's not afraid to gamble. Right now, did that work against the Gamecocks in some situations this past season? Absolutely. Was it sort of boneheaded to do what you did in that scenario against Tennessee? Yeah, I'd probably save that until after I got the touchdown on the board, maybe for the next time I'm inside the 10 or whatever. But and there was no excuse for that. But there are things about it that you go, hey, well, most fans who've watched predictable, boring offenses around here for a long time should like. But it's hard when it's not working. And it's hard when, okay, if you shut down the run, then there's no counter to it. And there's no passing to set up the run, that kind of thing. And really, I thought North Carolina – early on, creativity in the run game really, really worked. Okay, the run to Jaheim Bell, then countering with Harris up the middle. It wasn't a pass. It was a. I mean, it wasn't a run. It was a pass. But hitting Juju McDowell out in the flats. Boy, I wish they'd have done that against Missouri. And if you think about the 2 games down the stretch that were really troublesome. It was Missouri and it was Clemson. Now, against Clemson, you're facing a big personnel disadvantage with that group. And if you look at Brent Venables' defenses over the years when they've got really good talent and they're very aggressive, you have to beat them with a vertical passing game, or you have to have a mobile quarterback or something like that. You look at the teams that have given them trouble, like Louisville this year gave them some trouble because Malik Cunningham could break containment and go get yards. Maybe the Joyner thing should have happened against Clemson. And then Missouri was just ridiculous. I mean, you can't go very far against that defense. They're crashing their ends. You have to have a counter for that early and back them off, and that just didn't happen in that game. But the other three were pretty solid. So, look, I've said this before. I don't agree with what's happened. I'm not coming off that opinion right now. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope the offense goes up and down the field next year. Obviously. But Shane Beamer gets paid money to make these decisions, and it's his decision, and that's what head coaches are supposed to do. And if that's his decision, then, hey, you got to live with it and move forward. There's nothing any fans can do. There's nothing we can do out here in the media, nothing we can do about it. I mean, it is what it is. And, I wrote on the Big Spur today. I was like, the excuses, and I do think they're excuses because I don't think there was any excuse for the offense to be as bad as it was. I think this offense was not going to be a juggernaut, and I totally understand some ugly games. Don't get me wrong. But there's no excuse to go out there and have to throw a last-minute touchdown to beat Vanderbilt, guys. There's no excuse really in game 2 for half your line to be blocking one way and half of it to be blocking another at East Carolina, and you almost lost that one. No excuse for not scoring more against Troy. I mean, there was just all kinds of things that happened. Tennessee, you saw on on Thursday against the Tar Heels. That's how you compete against a team that runs offense like Tennessee. You use your offense to keep them off the field. Gamecocks were not patient enough to do that. So there's no excuse. It's all this talk about the third string quarterback and all that. Look, great. Jason Brown was third string, but you could also counter with he should have been the quarterback from the minute Luke Doty got his foot stepped on, because they weren't going anywhere with a hobbled Doty. They weren't going anywhere with Zeb Nolan. They did Saturday or Thursday. Big time thanks to DeCarry Joyner there. So to me, it's not really that, the third string quarterback played. It's you didn't identify your best quarterback until 4 games were left in the year. And I'm not saying Jason Brown is a world beater at all. And honest to God, you could probably sit there and make an argument that they didn't identify their best quarterback until the bowl game. And you move him and it makes another position on the field better. I mean, Amarian Brown and Jaheim Bell caught 9 combined passes for 214 yards. And because all that good stuff. So look, I think there's a lot of questions now. Can it get better? Yes. Do I think that there are certain aspects of the plan on offense that you go, wow, that really could work and all that good stuff? Yes. But you still have to teach it again next year. All this good stuff. What's going to be done about that? There's a load of returning players. So, like I said today, all the excuses are going to be off the table. They're going to have a veteran quarterback next year, a couple of them. They're going to have every offensive lineman coming back. They're going to still be talented at running back. They're going to get help at receiver, plus you got everybody back. So really all the things people talked about this year, first-year system, all that good stuff, that's all well and good, but it's out the window coming up in 2022, because there's absolutely just no reason why the offense from a personnel and returning players and players that they've added standpoint shouldn't be much, much better. And if it's not, then it's not going to be pretty, as far as that goes. But here's hoping that it is. And here's hoping that, the folks that just, threw all those excuses up there about third string quarterbacks and things like that. But here's hoping that they're right now. And I was wrong, because that's only going to help the team and the program and Shane Beamer and his tenure continue to go forward. There's a lot of positive things happening right now. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where you look at it and it's, the excuses are going to go bye-bye starting with next year.
Yeah. I mean, JC, he's been able to take a lot of the negatives that we were discussing coming into the season and turn them into positives. And that's the hope here, is that that you can do that again. I think I see on our Share Healthcare chat line some interesting comments. Jamie says, do you think some of this is built up frustration from the previous 5 years of offensive disappointment under Muschamp, and it just seems like the patience is really thing? I think that's part of it with some fans. I mean, we all have to remember something here. Steve Spurrier was the head coach for over a decade at South Carolina. Scoring points generally wasn't a problem. I mean, yeah, you're going to have your games and you're going to have your moments, but overall, we all were pretty comfortable year in and year out with the fact that Steve was going to figure out a way to put some points on the board. And then under Will, that consistency was not there at all. And now you've got it in year one with Coach Beamer, where it started out poorly, and then you get into November and you hit on a couple of games, and then the Clemson game, they didn't score a point unless I had been asleep for the last month and a half. So, there's a lot of things that you can actually point to have the conversation or the argument, however you would like to have it. I think, I've said things too, JC, and I'm pretty sure that you and I are thinking similar on this. I mean, I've been very critical publicly throughout the year. I thought the offense was putrid at best, and many times. But we should all be open to evolving our thoughts and opinions based on what we see. If something's getting better, it's getting better. If it's getting worse, it's getting worse. But we should be open to actually admitting that instead of just being stuck in what we were stuck in 2 and 3 months ago. I'm very skeptical moving forward. There's no doubt about that. But I'm also willing to accept the fact that there were some good performances. There's a whole offseason. Players don't just get better in the offseason. Coaches do too. They do a lot of things to go get better. They go talk to other coaches. They go through all these different little coaching clinics and stuff like that. They game plan. They work in the film room. They talk with players. They work with assistant coaches. They travel across the country and learn this, that, and the other. So I hope that that's where this is going. I hope that offensively, JC, I'm going to turn it back to you. I've been talking for too long. That offensively, not just the players and doing their part and bringing in good players, but that the coaches are going to do the best that they can, led by Marcus Satterfield, as long as he's going to be the offensive coordinator, that they will continue to improve themselves and get better too. And hey, guess what? It'll be year 2 in the same system. That's probably got to mean something as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure this factored into to Beamer's thought process as well, is that if you look at it, man, the older players in this program, and there are a lot coming back, okay? They had BMAC for 2 years. Then you had Bobo, that's 3. And then you have Satterfield this year. That's what? That's 4 offensive coordinator. If you count Roper, some of them do date back to Roper, but not many on offense, I don't think. Maybe some linemen. That's a lot, because whereas when BMAC took over for Roper, he maintained 50% of that playbook. There was a lot of carryover, and he just kind of added to it. And, quite frankly, everybody trashes BMAC and all that. But quite frankly, he's been the best that they've had, as far as this recent run, going back to the Spurrier era. So, you look at it and you're like, well, do you want to blow it up and start over again, or do you want to kind of have some faith that, the light's coming on for some of these guys, because, the offensive line's been confused all season. But against North Carolina, they weren't. They lined up and hit somebody in the mouth and dominated a North Carolina defensive front that I don't think's there yet, but that's very, very talented. I mean, if you look at the recruiting rankings of North Carolina's defensive front, I mean, they've got some dudes now that'll be really, really good. So, maybe you hope that the lights come on. And with players, players respond well to success. The buy-in always is better when you've had success. And, winning that bowl game, I think, we always talk about what does it mean to the different teams. That sent Carolina into some feel-good off-season vibes. And especially when you look at, I think that the plan on offense gave people some hope to go, hey, well, this was creative and they did do some things that were out of the box that worked, and, maybe that continues.
I'll say this. This has been a very it's been a little different of a tone of the conversation, but I don't think it's been articulated any better than the way, JC, you've put it. I've been very open in saying I think Satterfield should come back. I agree with everything you just said. Excuses are also gone at that point, but with the momentum that's been built, despite the adversity and the numbers and the confusion and the obvious pains at oftentimes where the team is now and the momentum, I don't think there should be a change made, but the way you put it, 100%. I mean, accept it, move forward, and then you see how it goes next year. And if there's a problem next year, similar to what you saw this year and early, then you could have a change early next year. But the excuses are gone. I like the way you put it.
Yeah, I think that people that tend to go, oh, we'll just live with what you like, with what you got, because that's as good as you were going to do. That's not really true. I think that this team had no business losing to Kentucky and having 210 yards, as good as they are on defense. This team had no business losing at Missouri. That's probably about it I can make an argument for. But that's the difference between 7 and 9 wins. Okay, if you include a bowl. And my opinion always is, if you're capable of doing it, unreached potential is my problem with the offense this year. This team should have been able to run the ball, not against everybody, maybe not against Clemson or A&M, but against most teams. And they didn't seem like they had a plan to do it. It got pass happy, all that good stuff. I mean, I understand the excuses and all that, and also understand that some people don't really, they're not too fired up about the talent at South Carolina, and tend to kind of look at it as a feast or famine kind of thing, and it's not. It probably should have been a mediocre offense that could run the ball pretty well. And it just wasn't that way most games this year. So, you're right, though, Darren. The excuses are over. He's going to come back. Like I said, the basics seem to escape this offense, but some of the window dressing and things like that, I don't mind at all. I think what to call and when has been a challenge. Yeah. And it could be a challenge next year, because a lot of times those guys either have it or they don't. So we'll see what happens. But, you can't rule out some other kind of staff tweak or something like that, like Tony Morrell reported the other day. There could be a situation where people are shifted around or whatever. It just doesn't look likely at this time. So, with what they've got now, we'll see what happens moving forward. They've got an awful lot of good players coming back and coming in to where, there is going to be an expectation that the offense not only gets from pathetic to mediocre, but beyond mediocre, at least to average or above average in the SEC, because they're going to be good on defense next year yet again. And so there's a real opportunity to have a really good season as long as the same old crap doesn't show up in 2022.
122, as a matter of fact, on Wednesday afternoon. Couple of quick things here. In the Share Healthcare chat lines. And I want to actually move to the players, JC, the guys that play the games, which is generally what we like to talk about around here. Adam asks, I worry about hearing JB and JC state there seems to be some staff turmoil with Satterfield. Not everyone will get along, but you don't want to rock the boat. Yeah, look, Adam, I first of all, for JC, JC does actually have a report up on the Big Spur. I just saw it a few minutes ago from before the show about some of this, and I would encourage you to read that. Hopefully, you remember the Big Spur, and I would just say that what JC has up there is pretty concrete stuff. It's look, man, people have issues sometimes, and it doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. Internally, things are headed in a better direction in Columbia.
Yeah, and I confirmed that with a couple of contacts this morning. More than one that said yes, things are better. And look, sometimes you just have to, you just gotta clear the air and say, hey, what's going on? And if you're in a leadership position, as Marcus Satterfield is, as Shane Bieber is, you got to get you guys all on the same page. And sometimes as a leader, I think you have to look in the mirror, and had lots of feedback that indicated that it occurred before the bowl. I don't know that it makes a difference because you heard some things that they had fixed before Florida, right? And then they went out to Missouri and did what they did. So I think that it's a wait and see. But I have respect for somebody that comes in and is in a leadership position that goes, look, I don't have all the answers, and I need you guys around me to help me with some answers and stuff like that. So I'm all for that.
As far as the players go, JC, Craig has a really good question here, but I'm going to make this bigger than just these three. He's asking about the linebackers, Mo Kaba, Debo Williams, and Colby Fields and how they're coming along. I'm going to toss it to you here, but we know what returns up front next year. You got a pair of Jordans anchoring the defensive end positions, basically the edge positions, and then you got a bunch of talent returning inside, and that's led by Zach Pickens and Ricky Sandage and Alex Huntley. Guys, he's got a chance to have a big career if he keeps doing what he's doing. Talk to Hemingway and others. These guys are really good, and credit to Will Muschamp and his staff, by the way, for recruiting some really good players up front. There's elite talent up there. So you got that group, JC. You got the secondary that I say outside. This is big shoes to fill. You got an All-American who's departing in Jalen Foster, who I think what should be encouraging about that is nobody saw that coming. So obviously Torian Gray and Clayton White had a hell of an effect on this young man, and you just hope they can have that same effect on somebody else. Who knows? Maybe it's like an R.J. Roderick who's returning for his 13th year at South Carolina. But I say all that because you got up front, you got the back. Right there in the middle is this group of players who have largely been considered a weakness. That's probably not going to be the case next year. You return a lot of dudes. Your linebacking core all of a sudden, JC, potentially is considered a strength of your football team. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and was the defensive line as good as it could have been at times this year? No, especially on the interior. And I'll say this too. Folks have to understand sometimes when you don't have a good run defense, it's really not your D-line. It's your linebackers getting out of gaps. Because in a lot of ways, your interior D-line, their job is to engage the centers and guards and keep them from pulling and getting their hands on the linebacker. The linebacker needs to go make the play. And that was part of it this year against the run for sure. But, yeah, did Zach Pickens play like he did against North Carolina every single or Florida or Vanderbilt? Name the good games he had. Did he play like that every game? No. Can he? Yes. He can be as good as he wants to be. He can be a first rounder. Jordan Strachan, platooning with Aaron Sterling, and, God bless Aaron Sterling for what he did during his time at South Carolina. I wish he would have been a little more productive this year in terms of sacks and getting home on some things, but he did a really good job. But Jordan Strachan is a big, long, natural pass rusher. He's the kind of guy that you could see having a huge, huge year next year. On the other side, you got Birch. Birch is one of those guys, too. He can be as good as he want to be. People like criticize him a little bit. I don't get it. Yeah. They have to keep in mind, Birch, this is number one, he's coming from Skeeza, so there was going to be a learning curve for him because he's not used to the type of competition he faces. Number two, people don't understand he was out for long, critical stretches last year with COVID protocols and then nagging injuries, things like that. So he really did not get a full year. He played in a lot of games, but the practice time, the development, the offseason, none of that was in place for Birch. And he did take a step forward this season. I think he can take another step forward. He's another one that can be as good as he wants to be. Behind those guys, Gilbert Edmond is a player I've heard a lot of good things about. He was number 2 on the depth chart at Buck coming in. Unfortunately, I think COVID got him for the game. But that's another big, long pass rusher. And then today, Hale McGranahan reports NC State defensive end Terrell Dawkins, who's from Concord, North Carolina. He's in the portal, and he's a guy that the Gamecocks like. My understanding with him is he was a hand-down, hand-in-the-dirt pass rusher type. And then NC State switched up its scheme, and they had him standing up some. That really isn't his game. Gamecocks are in the hunt for him as well. And then you mentioned the secondary. Central Michigan transferred Devontae Reed, all MAC player, stud, future NFL guy. A lot of competition for him. Texas offered the other day and some things like that. But, keep an eye on him as a guy that can maybe come in and give you a veteran back there at safety to kind of solidify that spot, which will have a lot of young players and then a lot of guys who probably need to get better to really have an impact, like Jalen Foster did. So keep an eye on him as a potential addition there at safety. Also, if things get too hairy back there, replacing Foster, Keenan Nelson Jr. is a freshman from Philadelphia, an Army All-American guy that physically I think could step in and maybe be a guy that from game 3 on is a starter. Who knows? Who knows with that?
Well, last year, JC, they were really heavy in the portal on the defensive side. This year, it appears that's more shifted towards the offense, but we probably should still continue to keep an eye on the transfer portal for additions on the defensive side of the football. Have you heard similar things?
Oh, the portal on defense? Yeah. You've got defensive, they're really looking for offensive guys. Running back has now become, they've only got 3 scholarship backs and some things like that. I think they would, maybe they take one receiver. They're not just going to take a warm body, but the picture at receiver, you look at what Amarian Brown did in the bowl. Okay, you have to kind of think, well, the light's coming on for him. They're using him the right way. Jaheim Bell's probably going to be in the receiver room next year.
Yeah.
So there's 2 that you can count that are here that you can count on. Landon Sampson's coming in. Josh Vann's, he said he was cut. We reported he was coming back a long time ago, that he did an interview. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure he's coming back. And, you've got E.J. Jenkins, could be a tight end or whatever. So you've got some guys. You're a little thin, so who knows if they'll add 1 or 2 receivers for the portal or not. I just know they're not going to just take somebody to take him. I think that they've got, they've got kind of a criteria for what they're looking for at that spot.
I think you'll probably want to keep an eye in the spring on Omega Blake, very talented young man who's going to have a chance to crack that depth chart next year and play early. And then, E.J. Jenkins, they got to figure out what to do with him. They got to he's a big kid. So how can he help this football team? You mentioned JC running back, and I've heard similar stuff. Now with Kevin gone, there's if they can get it, which they think they can, there's probably going to be a portal addition at running back somewhere. Yeah. Marshawn Lloyd is certainly the guy that people have circled as numero uno going into 2022. We all know about his talent, and we all saw Juju McDowell this year. But you've said this numerous times. What I'm about to say. I would not write Rashad Amos's name off of the board. This kid is good, and he didn't get a chance this year, and he had some other, some injury stuff and things like that. But JC, he's going to get a chance in the spring, and he's a bigger guy, and they need a bigger guy. They just lost one. He's got a shot to make a big impact.
Oh, I've always been a big fan of Rashad Amos. I think 6'2", 220. A player that has speed for his size. A heck of an evaluation out of Sandy Creek High School by Thomas Brown. For the short time he was there, he got Lloyd and this kid. And I think he could do some big things. You look and it's out there that the running back from Wake Forest, who was their leading rusher the last 2 years, is a player South Carolina's in on, a North Carolina native. Certainly, you look at what Michigan State did at running back from Wake Forest this year, and you're like, wow, and then there's some other names floating around out there. Don't want to get into all of them right now, but there's some other names out there that could pop up. Maybe some familiar names that Gamecock fans would be happy at. I'm not worried about running back. I think one way or the other it'll all work out. I hate it for Marshawn Lloyd in the season he had this year because just when it seemed he would get going, somebody would inevitably miss a block. It wasn't Marshawn's fault. I don't know what people expect. Every back in the universe would have probably fumbled with some of the shots he took. So I don't think he has ball. I mean, maybe he does need to shore it up a little bit, but he'd get going, and then they put him in, and some play would get blown up, and then he'd fumble or something or get rocked, and then he'd go out. And so how's he supposed to get a rhythm? I don't think we'll know. And then, of course, he didn't play in the bowl just because, I think he was nursing some injuries. But, the hope is he has a better year next year. And then Juju's a guy, certainly you can use him in certain situations. And like you said, they'll add some players. You got to have depth at running back, man. I mean, even Alabama, as good as they recruit, Bama had to play a receiver at running back against Georgia in the SEC championship game because they just had too many injuries. And, you get two guys out, and all of a sudden you're looking around going, hey, who could play running back? The good news is you do have a guy that can play running back and receiver and tight end if he wanted to, and probably line up in the shotgun at quarterback, and that's Jaheim Bell. So you can always ride him if you get in a bad emergency situation at running back.
What do you do with the carry-on Joyner, JC?
I don't know. Yeah, that's tough. You know what I'd do? I'd leave him at quarterback. Now, I'll say this. Spencer Rattler is not coming to South Carolina to split reps.
I know.
So there's that. But I just think that's DeCarrion's natural. I think we were all wrong trying to move him here, there, and yonder, and, love the athleticism and quickness and elusiveness. And, he's more athletic, quick, and elusive as a quarterback than he ever has been at receiver or anywhere else. If I move him somewhere, or if I don't want him to be a receiver anymore, maybe he's a running back. But I think he's a quarterback, guys. And I think, too, he's a guy very loyal to South Carolina, right?
Oh.
But if he wants to be a quarterback, he may go try his luck someplace else. I tell you this, if I were Virginia Tech, and I know they've been talking to Jason Brown a little bit, but with the offense they're running, they hired the OC from Georgia State, which is basically the App State offense or whatever. If I'm looking around and I go, oh, Jason Brown or DeCarrion Joyner, I'm like, this Joyner kid, probably for what we need to be doing next year, this Joyner kid could really help us. So I don't know. Just from a South Carolina standpoint, though, I just leave him at quarterback and let him compete. I mean, the guy, and you never know. What if Spencer Rattler won the job and got injured or something?
Yeah.
You look, and based on what he did in the bowl and what I think he's capable of doing at the position, that's a guy that could give you a boost as a backup quarterback. Nothing against Luke Doty or anybody else, but that's a guy that becomes very intriguing when you start talking about him there. I just don't see him beating out Rattler for the starting job, and I don't see them doing some sort of 2-quarterback system next year.
Well, what I do see is Spencer Rattler coming in and having multiple challengers. That doesn't mean that he ain't going to win the job. He's going to be expected to, and probably is going to win the job. But Shane Beamer has been doing this a long, long time, JC, and as well as I do, he's going to make sure that Spencer Rattler has competition this spring at quarterback. Like, he needs him to work. And not that Spencer Rattler wasn't going to work. He's going to come in and work his tail off. But competition is good. So I agree with you. I think, he's a quarterback. And then one of the things you get to do for the next 8 months, figure out a way to get him the ball. If he can't play quarterback for you and Spencer Rattler is, then I've said this a couple of times, and I don't know that it's been very well received, but I said exactly what you just said. Try him a running back. I mean, the dude, he is, people say he's good in space with the football, JC. You know where he's good with the football? Around the line of scrimmage, when he can see the whole field. We just learned that last week for those that didn't know, and I'm one of them. He is really good around the line of scrimmage and being able to see what's going on out there. That's where he needs the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the wild, if they're going to still do the Wildcat package, obviously you need to build off of it and not do, hey, DeCarrion, go keep the ball and get thrown for a loss, kind of like that thing. So
like they did for 12 games. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
1:39 Wednesday afternoon. We're going to let JC run here in just a moment, but want to hit on a couple of other things, JC, as it pertains to the personnel of this football team. One is there apparently, according to what they did in the bowl game, they're going to return all 5 starters on the offensive line. That is exceptional. That's unless something changes between now and then. And if there's one thing that is constant in college football these days, it's change. So it could happen in a hurry. But as it stands, they're going to return not just their 5 starters, but a lot of depth up front. Once again, we're going to have the same conversation we had last year, JC, as we got through June and July. Man, they should be pretty good up there on the lines of scrimmage. The difference is this will be the second year under one scheme, in one scheme. The other thing I want to hit on here is something that just isn't being talked about, and I think it absolutely should be talked about, and that's Parker White. Now, I'm a big fan of Mitch Jeter, and I think he's going to come in and do a nice job. But this dude, first of all, he's a Wando guy, so I give him all the credit in the world. I went to school with his older brother, so more credit. But he's just solid. I mean, you knew it was going to be very rare that Parker White for the last couple of years was going to miss a kick. So you knew what you had in him. It was quite a blanket for the Gamecock offense when he was used, and he is no longer there. So that's something I think that we should probably be keeping an eye on, especially with a team that has struggled to score points like the Gamecocks have in a league like the SEC, where you're going to need to score points and there's going to be a lot of close games. You got to be solid there. The good news is Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo, yeah, they run the special teams, so that should be good.
Yeah, and Mitch Jeter's got a very powerful leg, much like Parker White did. But you have that kind of consistency and stability at the position. And then, you got a new guy. Obviously, it's going to be different. So we'll see what happens with that. But that is something to keep an eye on. The good news is Kai Kroger, who may be the best holder in college football, is coming back.
No kidding.
And and so you got that going on, and that could be very beneficial no matter who ends up kicking the field goals for the Gamecocks in 2022.
All right, bud. On that note, we're going to let you go grab one of your infamous beef sandwiches.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, we got I'm doing that SEC podcast here in about 20 minutes, and then having Inside the Gamecocks later, and going to be on with Keith later this week. So it's another full week of awesomeness talking about Carolina football.
You talk a lot on Wednesdays, don't you?
Wednesday is my day. I get up. I start my day with Wimp and Barry on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. Then record my own stuff. Today I had to go to the laundromat, so that was fun.
Right.
And then they come back and spend a nice chunk of time with you guys. And then usually there's, a couple more things after that. Maybe a JC and Morgan thrown in there. Who knows? But
you brought up something. I've been meaning to ask you this. This clicked with me like 6 months ago or more, and I totally forgot to just mention your time in Tuscaloosa with Cook Sanderson and those guys. That's a good show, by the way. I've checked in on you from time to time there to see if you're hungover or how you're doing. So we know what to expect around here. But I'm just curious, have they ever had – we all know Spurrier, and we all know Spurrierism. This is one of my favorite things to do in life is talk like Steve. Have they ever had Steve on? Hey, Wimpy. Hey, Wimpy. Steve.
I've never heard them have anybody on. I mean, they kind of do their media guys. It's a real relaxed atmosphere with Coach and Barry, and it's I've done it for years. Gosh, man, this will be my 5th or 6th year doing this every Wednesday morning. And you're right about the hangover. There's not many great JC Shurburtt segments on Wednesday morning. If there's been a Tuesday, any kind, I get in bed early on a Tuesday night, man, because I got to get up ready to roll for my full day.
Yeah, I mean, we need to know what to expect around here, so I have to check in on you. I just didn't know if maybe Steve had ever been on and he called Wimpy. That'd be
Wimpy. What's up? It's
how the Tide Boys doing?
It's interesting, because Wimp does the lock of the week or the blue plate special. And he went against Carolina, the blue plate special, like every single time this year and won. And then had the bowl game, North Carolina, as his blue plate special and lost. So that was that. I actually talked to them on that game day, and we talked about it and stuff. So it was good.
When you next time you talk to him, ask next time you talk to those guys, ask them about there's a place in Northport, which is basically Tuscaloosa. It's right over that little creek or river or whatever it runs through there. The best fried catfish I've ever had in my life, I had in the something cafe, and I think it's only open in the mornings. It's right there in Northport. Ask them the name of that cafe, and if you don't mind, report back to me next Wednesday.
Fried catfish,
Northport, Alabama.
Northport, Alabama. I know where Northport is. It's kind of a twin city of Tuscaloosa. So.
Yeah, it's literally Tuscaloosa, but I can't remember the name of it. I think it's just a place that's only open in the morning, right there in that little downtown area.
I will get on it.
Northport, Alabama, fried catfish, JC Shurburtt, thebigspur.com. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one, and we'll definitely catch up with you next week.
Later. There you go. JC Shurburtt. Wimpy. Hey, Wimpy. Steve. All right, 145. How can I help you? He's helped a lot of people. Daniel Owens and his staff at iHelp Consulting are actually going to be soon helping a friend of mine who is set to call Daniel, and she needs to save some money in her business. And so I said, well, I know the guy you can call. So that's what she's going to do. He saved thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for some businesses here in the state of South Carolina, healthcare industry, auto repair industry, fast food, insurance, you name it. It could be something as small as saving $300 or $400 a month. But if you own a small business, $300 or $400 a month is a lot of money, because $400 a month times 12 would be $4,800 a year. That's a lot of money. So make sure that you head to iHelpConsulting.com and ask Daniel how he can help you. How can I help you? How can I help yourself? iHelpConsulting.com. Daniel Owens, he is from the state of South Carolina. He cares about the state of South Carolina, and he is a dear friend. We know all of you know people, or maybe you are yourselves business owners. It's a simple free phone call, and it is a simple free look at your money. You save it, you pay. You don't, you don't. It's that simple at iHelpConsulting.com. All right, final timeout, 146 here on this Wednesday afternoon. Hang tight. We'll be right back. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. ihelpconsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and unmuffled.
Our final 10 minutes on a Wednesday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, presented by Motley Rice. Corey. Yes, that's right. It's City Cafe. I was actually looking it up during the break. If you've ever been, have you been to Tuscaloosa, Darren?
No, I've been close. I've been to Birmingham a bunch. I've never gone to Tuscaloosa.
If you ever go to T-Town, and I pulled this up, and there's somebody that put on Google, they took a picture of the menu from September of 2021, and I haven't been there. I haven't been to Tuscaloosa in 12 years.
That's a long time.
12 years. Let's see. When did we last play them down there? I feel like that was 09. We played them in Columbia in 2010. Played them in Columbia in 2019. So 09. It was 09. It was the Mark Ingram game when they just started snapping it to Mark Ingram the whole second half, and he ran it down our throats. But I had gone. I was there in 04 when Coach Holtz and the Gamecocks beat Mike Shula 20-3. And that's when I first went to this place. I was dating a girl that went to Alabama. And she said, we got to go here. And she's from Alabama, so she knew all the southern spots. It's got the same menu that it's had since 04. So I ate there then, and then ate there again in 09. And it's the old school, man. It's only open from like 6:30 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. Biscuits a biscuit itself is 80 cents. The sausage biscuit's $1.80. They've never changed the prices. 2 veggies and a meat is $9.25. It's awesome. But if you ever go to Tuscaloosa, you got to go. It's just right up. There's a little river that runs right outside of town. I mean, it's 2 minutes from campus. You got to go to City Cafe in Northport, Alabama. Got to go there.
I'm not a catfish guy, so if I don't go catfish, I've got other options, right?
Yeah. They've got barbecue and
I'm good.
Now a lot of it's fried now, chicken fried steak and things like that. But you can probably manage with some of that stuff, right?
As long as it's not catfish that's being fried. I'm generally not a big catfish guy. Dog and Duck's grouper bites are like one of the most popular things on the menu, and one of the only things I've never even eaten on the menu. I have no desire.
Do you just not like fish?
Only some.
Okay.
I love shrimp. I like tuna. I had salmon that my sister cooked over Thanksgiving. That was really, really good, but not generally a big fish guy.
Yeah. The thing with catfish, and I know we're kind of getting off here, but sorry, we could save the rest of this crap for tomorrow. The thing with catfish, in my opinion, is I can instantly tell if it's like fresh catfish or if it's farm raised, like they are basically growing these things. I can tell like that as soon as I bite into it. If it's fresh catfish and you've gone out to Lake Moultrie or Lake Marion or wherever, and caught catfish or commercially caught wild catfish somehow, it's a different taste. But there's a almost a plasticky type taste to me to farm raised catfish, and I know instantly. I'm like that,
like a fish stick when you're growing up. That taste.
Yeah, it's different. It's and what'll happen is because a lot of people don't like that. You'll get a lot of these restaurants and stuff. They'll just try to fry it enough to kind of eliminate that taste, but you can't eliminate it. I mean, I don't know, whatever. J-Rock, if you ever go to Nashville, which I've been to Nashville multiple times, I'll be going back before long, eat at Canty Forks River Cafe. Delicious wild game joint. Elk burger. Ooh, man.
Deer Philly. Now that
venison Philly cheesesteak is what he's getting at.
Yeah.
And gator bites. I'm all for gator bites. Now I'm just hungry as crap.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Back in 2007, while we're talking about Alabama, a couple days ago, Darren, it was the 15-year anniversary from when Saban accepted the job. Does anybody remember the story of how that happened? Like, do you remember who they were set to hire?
What I remember most is only because it was jogged in my memory again, the picture of like the massive tractor behind a really young and almost disheveled looking Nick Saban, blown by wind as he I think was landed on the tarmac there. I don't remember who they were about to hire though.
RR. Those are his initials.
Rodriguez?
Yeah. It was Rich Rodriguez.
That would not have worked.
No, it wouldn't work. It was Rich
based on the resume afterwards, I'm going to go with probably not.
No, he was at West Virginia and they were good. And then Malmore was set to hire Rodriguez. I remember this like it happened yesterday. It's crazy. And I had actually some contacts in Alabama then, but who happened to know some people in Alabama. I was just a kid. And I was like, wow, and I've never forgotten any of this. JC could probably tell the story way better than I could, or stories like these better than I could. But yeah, he was that was the guy. And then they ended up backing out and staying at West Virginia for whatever reason. Rumors are that West Virginia, there were some contract disputes and things like that. I don't know, but he stayed there. And then we all know he ended up taking the Michigan job and that did not work. No. But during all of that, a lot of people around here remember this. Malmore called Spurrier, and Spurrier has openly said multiple times, yeah, I told him you probably need to hire that Saban guy. That's probably the guy you need to hire. I'm staying at South Carolina. I don't want to come to Alabama. But they put the full pitch on Steve. Hey, we this is, you could be Steve Spurrier 2.0 here at Alabama, which he probably would have been. And he said nope, he wanted to stay with the Gamecocks, and he did, thank God. And the rest is history. But yeah, they hired Saban, and it was Rich Rodriguez. There were other names, and I can't remember some of them that were involved, Darren, but it's amazing when you look back and you see some of that and you see how the careers played out of guys. You're like, oh my God, they dodged bullet after bullet after bullet.
With the story, then it also becomes, maybe even without the story, one of maybe the greatest hire ever. Bama was Bama. Then they fell off to Nowhereville. And then here's Saban, who's put them right back on the everyone wants to beat Bama. We're going to be competing for national championships all the time. It's one of the best hires. Imagine what would have happened had they hired Rodriguez.
I think it was,
Spurrier wouldn't have been there this long. I guarantee you that. He could have had success. Wouldn't equal the success and wouldn't have been here this long.
Yep, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. It's that 2007 group, the coaching changes that took place that year. These are just some of the names that stand out. I looked it up. I had to look it up. Saban, Dennis Erickson was signed at Arizona State that year. Brian Kelly got the Cincinnati gig. Mario Cristobal got the gig at Florida International. Now look where he is. Gene Chizik was hired at Iowa State. Everybody remember Gene Chizik going to Auburn after he went like 4-8 at Iowa State. He did win a national championship though, or Cam Newton did. Randy Shannon got the Miami job that year. Mark D'Antonio got the Michigan State job that year. Butch Davis got the North Carolina job. Tom O'Brien went to North Carolina State.
All right. A couple big names. I mean, it pales in comparison to this cycle.
And Harbaugh got the Stanford job.
The Stanford job.
Yeah. That all happened in the 2007. There's a bunch of other guys that year. I mean, Todd Graham got the Tulsa job that year. Jeff Jagodzinski got the Boston College job that year. And then something strange happened up there, and he got like fired or something a year later.
He went after the Packers job, and the pursuit of that job ruffled feathers.
Yeah, he fired.
I don't know. I don't know the exact details of it, but that's right. That was what happened.
Didn't Green Bay contact BC and asked for permission to speak to him, and BC said no, and he talked to him anyway? Isn't that kind of how it played out?
I don't remember. I know they were upset that he talked, and that was basically the end of it. Meanwhile, Harbaugh could be on the move again. That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of that tomorrow, and certainly maybe headed to Vegas. Who knows?
Chicago?
Maybe Chicago? The NFL, just so everybody knows. It's National Whipped Cream Day, everybody. Make sure that you watch Varsity Blues in honor of that tonight. One of the best football movies ever. Thanks to JC Shurburtt, Darren Goldwater, and all of you for sticking around with us here through the 2 o'clock hour. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. We can't wait for that. But until then, have a wonderful Wednesday at the Dog and Duck. If you're in the Low Country, the brown bag double cheeseburger smash burger special. It's awesome. It's tasty. It's cheesy. And we'll see you tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.